Welcome back to my channel. It is Candace with a K, where I normally talk books, beauty, and kicks. Today I am giving my review of Francine's Spectacular Crash and Burn. If you've never heard of this book, you should for sure stay tuned because you are going to want to add this one to your TBR. Today, I'm talking about Francine's Spectacular Crash and Burn by Renee Swindle. Now, I was provided a copy of this book, and I must say that I am forever indebted for being introduced to such a spectacular writer who is able to write such dramatic experiences in such a lofty, soft is not the right word, light way. Let's really get into it. First, let's talk about the cover. Francine's Spectacular Crash and Burn features this woman kind of having her fall from grace. You've got the disco ball. You'll also notice little astrological stars and signs. This is such a good cover when you really get into the book because it definitely shows you what Francine was going through in her fall. Her mother was really interested in astrology, so you get those elements, and the disco ball kind of had its moment in the book of just being a focal point and a spot. So I think the illustrator did an awesome job here. The colors are nice and vibrant to where you would expect this to be kind of like an easygoing book, particularly because the language doesn't make you think that this book is going to be as deep as it is. And it is deep. So if you don't think you can handle many very triggering topics such as child abuse, such as sexual abuse, substance abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse, there's a lot of things that take place in this book that kind of leave your mouth agape, but you don't feel heavy after reading it. It's actually such a interesting way in which the author wrote this that I need you to read it. Otherwise, I give this cover 10 out of 10. So I'm now going to read the back blurb of this book, and then we'll get into the things that I liked and did not like about this title. Francine Stevenson gets more than she bargained for when she rescues 10-year-old Davy from a group of bullies clamoring to snatch his beloved iPad. From the day forward, the puzzling direct boy continues to show up at her door until the two develop a unique understanding. Their Pixar movie nights and Davy's random Steve Jobs factoids slowly work to soothe the ache of Francine's mother's recent passing. And to Francine's surprise, Davy's foster mother turns out to be none other than Jeanette, her fiery high school crush. Tired of being used by the woman she meets on dating apps, Francine grows closer to very married Jeanette until all her other priorities begin to cloud over and Davy is only on the periphery of her mind. A consecutive string of bad choices leaves Francine wondering how she can free herself from an incredibly hot but toxic engagement. What follows is a tumultuous journey of self-discovery told by one of the zaniest voices in fiction. A tale of found family and hijinks, Francine's Spectacular Crash and Burn will wiggle deep into even the most resistant hearts. And honestly, it's absolutely true. Francine is one of those characters that you love to hate but hate to love, simply because you are rooting for her. Yet she continues to make terrible decision after terrible decision, in part because of her own upbringing and never having the autonomy to really think or make decisions on her own. So when she's pushed into these scenarios and the necessary times in which she needs to adult, she simply doesn't know how. So from this point forward, there are going to be spoilers. I'm giving you your fair warning. Stay if you want to hear them. Leave if you don't. But make sure you come back. Come back. So Francine is raised in a household in which her mother is agoraphobic, meaning that she doesn't like to go outside. Yet she has this public persona of being a YouTuber where she does astrology readings and she does all these theatrical antics on the internet, yet she hates to leave her house. So essentially how I read it is that she's kind of living in a hoarder house where there's a lot going on. They have an altar that her mother is like her beloved altar. Her mother has imposed her disease essentially on her daughter, where since a young child, Francine has had to take care of her mother. Her mother is very depressive, although being this bubbly person, and relied heavily on prescription drugs that she was not prescribed. And I believe that the stress that Francine endured as a child led to her having Bell's palsy, where she experienced the slouching of her face. And because of her dark skin, she was called Mudface. And that kind of carried her through life. You know, she was the girl with the slouchy face. Despite all of that, she went to UC Berkeley, my alma mater. And I thought, you know, you applaud the efforts of making it. I think it's very important, the UC Berkeley connection, considering that she went to a public school in Oakland, is that that's not common. Although it happens, to make it to such a prestigious institution from Oakland is not an everyday occurrence. And it's important to know that she was able to do that. So that means she has the power. And I liked the author using that as a device, because I know homies that I went to school with from UC Berkeley who were from Oakland, West Oakland, East Oakland. They were the anomalies in their schools, in their families, and whatnot. It's not an everyday occurrence, particularly for a Black person. Let's put that caveat. So when her mother dies, after Francine is trying to encourage her to exercise, her mother ends up having a heart attack. So now Francine is alone. Being an only child with just your mother, not really close to any of your family, because Francine's aunt and mother had a contentious relationship. Francine now is pushed into adulthood, although she is 30 something. And I connect with that, because as close as my mother and I are, if I had to be pushed into adulthood today, ooh, you know, it's like I still rely heavily on her. So I understand that. When she meets Davy is such a unique character because he's almost like a guardian angel without wings. And I say that because he was autistic. He had very interesting ways of communicating. And he is such an unconventional character that I don't know if I would have enjoyed this book as much without his presence. Obviously, he is a main character, but it was such an interesting character. Davy is a product of the foster care system, in that he was being bounced from home to home, experiencing his own amounts of abuse. What I liked that the author did in this book was make it so that when Davy was not wanting to speak or not wanting to talk, he often brought up facts about slavery. And for whatever, the author could have made it any topic. It could have been Pixar films when he was sad. It could have been birds if he was sad. But slavery is such a unique device to use when you are sad and hurt, because it puts you back in a place of understanding of how cruel and all the things that slavery was. And this is this child's ways of connecting and communicating his pain. I was like, oh my God, that is like, I don't want to call it genius, but it's genius. And I thought that was such a good device that the author used. So Davy is the foster child of Jeanette. Jeanette is Francine's former high school crush. Now, Jeanette is the embodiment of a woman from the slums of Oakland. I'm not even gonna hold you. She kind of summed it up to the T. She's in a relationship she don't really care about, but having to be with because they have kids together. She is a fighter. Which there's good and reasons to fight, so that's not in any way derogatory. A swindler. Again, there's good and bad ways to swindle, so not always derogatory, but the author was able to really capture a person from Oakland with Jeanette. And as I was reading it after living in Berkeley and doing my 4 years in the Bay Area, I said, oh yeah, I know exactly who that is. And so Jeanette, I won't say saw a victim in Francine, but she capitalized. And she saw a moment of weakness in that woman, and she swindled. And I wouldn't say if it's rightfully so or not, because all that is subjective. But she definitely preyed on Francine's vulnerabilities, and Francine allowed it despite knowing that this was happening. Which, let this be a call to you. Don't ever want to have friends that badly. Don't ever feel as though you need to bear the financial burden, put yourself constantly in moments of inconvenience, overextend yourself just to have friends. I understand people long for companionship and friendship and things of that nature, but it's never that serious. All in all, they end up messing around, which I can't say I did not see it coming. I definitely saw it coming. Did I think it would actually happen? No. I thought they would still remain in a platonic friendship, but a swindler is going to swindle. And if it requires, putting out a little bit, I think that's what it was. And so that's why I say, I see Jeanette. I see you. I know who you are. The crash and burn is summarized so well because it's a complete fall from grace. You want me to spend nearly $7,000 on your son who doesn't even like me, who won't even talk to me, talking about Jeanette's son, so that he could go to camp because I care about Davy's well-being, and Davy is so excited to go to camp. Seeing all of that play out and seeing Francine come to the realization in real time was spectacular writing. That is what I often long and want to see when I am looking for character development in a novel. It is the thought process of me knowing this is not right. I know I messed up, and now I'm about to take action and change it. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I wish the book would have gone more into the actual crash and burn, and that I think Francine needed to wallow in her feelings, resentment, poor decisions just a little bit more. Not in a sense that she needed to be punished, because she did come to the realization. However, I think she needed to really experience a fall. And maybe that would have been paying for Sterling School and then not being able to afford to go to art school any longer. Or just some other level of conflict that would have cemented her feelings towards being financially abused by Jeanette. I think that would have sealed it. Not to mention, though, she did get beat up by Jeanette. So maybe that's all she really needed. And rightfully so. Like, you put your hands on me, it's a wrap. It's over. It's done. It's finito. But I just wish the crash and burn would have been a little bit more substantial. All in all, I think I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed the read. I enjoyed the time reading it. It was a fairly simple read. I believe this is only, 300 or so pages. I read through it pretty quickly. I am so grateful for the Reparations book, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House, for sending me this book for my review. It's exceptional. Put it on your TBR. Encourage others to read it. It is a great piece of work that interrogates self-discovery while also acknowledging the grief, the pain, the hurt, the abuse that comes along the way as you are finding yourself, whenever you may be finding yourself. And that could be as young as Davy was, and him navigating his own experiences, to even Francine, to even Jeanette. So I think that is spectacular writing. I will look into more of Renee's work. Right here it says she's also the author of Shake Down the Stars and A Pinch of Ooh La La, as well as Please, Please, Please. So it's some other things to consider when you are looking into this work, but I highly will recommend this one. And it'll probably stick with me for a minute, just considering the topics that were discussed in such a interesting way that you don't leave feeling heavy. You rather feel hopeful that Francine is going to do something with her life. And that's all that matters. So again, my name is Candace with a K. Be sure to follow Candace with a K Reads on Instagram. That is where I post all book related content, as well as to hit that subscribe button. See you in my next video. Peace.